Solitude does not make certain women lonely. It makes them dangerous. Not dangerous in the way people expect, not loud, okay, not chaotic, not destructive, but dangerous in a quieter way. Because somewhere around 30, when life does not follow the script she was promised, something inside her reorganizes. And when that happens, the woman who emerges is harder to control, harder to pressure, and impossible to shame into shrinking. And people feel that shift immediately. They may not understand it, but they react to it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why solitude in a woman's late 20s and 30s can produce a kind of psychological independence that unsettles social expectations, and why that independence is often misunderstood as intimidation. This is not about isolation, it's about transformation. Nobody announces the moment it happens. There's no ceremony, no visible transformation, no dramatic soundtrack. Just a quiet realization one evening. You're alone. You're 30 and you're no longer afraid of either. Something about that combination changes a woman. Not loudly, not performatively, but fundamentally. Because solitude at 30 does not feel like teenage loneliness, no. It does not feel like early 20s confusion, not at all. And it also does not feel like waiting to be chosen. It almost feels intentional, even when it was not planned. And that's where the danger begins. The first change happens when the life script collapses. In your early years, being alone can feel like a verdict, like you missed something, like you're behind schedule, like everyone else received a manual you never saw. You measure your life through proximity. Who wants you? Who calls you? Who claims you? Who stays? Aloneness feels like absence. Aloneness feels like a fault. Most women grow up with an invisible timeline humming in the background. Love by this age, stability by that age, partnership soon after. And even when she says she doesn't care, the expectation still shapes her decisions every time. Then solitude stretches longer than planned. Months turn into years, and instead of falling apart, she adapts. She starts to build routines without romantic validation. She solves problems alone. She celebrates milestones without witnesses. At first, this feels like survival, but over time, it becomes identity. She realizes, I am functioning, I am growing, I am okay, I am even thriving without the life I thought I needed, without the life I was taught that I needed. So at 30, something recalibrates. You've seen enough cycles, enough almosts, enough mismatched rooms, enough emotional negotiations, and slowly, solitude stops feeling like rejection and starts to feel like filtration. You're not alone because nobody came. You are alone because not everyone qualifies. That realization is seismic. Because when the timeline loses authority, so does the fear attached to it. And fear has always been the easiest way to steer women's choices. Without this fear, she moves differently. Her mental environment changes. Solitude creates cognitive quiet, and cognitive quiet is rare. There's no constant negotiation, no emotional noise, no performing moods for social comfort. Her thoughts stretch out. She starts noticing, you start noticing your real preferences, your social fatigue patterns, your emotional triggers, your intellectual hungers. Without constant interruption, your mind reorganizes itself. You begin forming opinions you weren't handed, desires you did not inherit, and standards you need not apologize for. And a woman who thinks independently is difficult to socially stare, that's one layer of dangerous. The second shift is emotional self-sufficiency. You see, humans are wired to seek reassurance, approval, reflection, emotional anchoring, but extended solitude trains a woman to regulate her own emotional storms. Extended solitude teaches emotional regulation. She learns to sit in discomfort without rushing to be soothed. You learn to sit with waves instead of outsourcing comfort. Sadness visits, you survive it. Uncertainty lingers, you function anyway. Joy arrives, you savor it privately. You stop needing an audience for your emotions. This builds internal stability, and stability removes desperation. No more rushing into the wrong rooms. No more clinging to misaligned people. No more tolerating subtle disrespect for companionship. You become harder to emotionally manipulate. Not colder, just anchored. This woman processes rejection privately. She makes decisions without polling a room. The result, again, isn't coldness, it's steadiness, and steadiness disrupts expectations. People are accustomed to emotional accessibility as proof of warmth. People are accustomed to emotional accessibility as proof of warmth, especially from women. So when she pauses instead of reacting, when she listens more than she explains, when she leaves situations calmly, others read that composure as detachment. What they're actually witnessing is someone who no longer panics at the thought of being misunderstood, and that is rare. And rare reads as threatening. And then something even more disruptive happens. Her boundaries solidify. Before solitude reshapes her, boundaries often feel optional, flexible, negotiable, apologetic. But years of self-navigation teach her the cost of overextension. She learns how exhaustion feels, how resentment grows, how people interpret softness as permission. So she begins to say no, clearly. No apology tour, no elaborate justification, no endless typing, just clarity. And clarity is uncomfortable for those accustomed to emotional bargaining. Because when she stops cushioning her limits, others must confront their own expectations of her. She isn't being cruel, she's being precise. But precision exposes how much access people assumed they were entitled to, and entitlement rarely exits quietly. So as she spends more time alone, observation replaces noise. She starts seeing patterns. Who dominates conversations? Who performs empathy? Who only calls when they need validation? Who resents quiet confidence? Solitude sharpens social pattern recognition. You speak less, you notice more, and people feel that. They sense that they are being understood beyond their presentation, and that makes some people uncomfortable because perception is power. And this is where her relationship with approval changes. Social belonging is powerful currency, especially for women who are often conditioned to maintain harmony at personal expense. But solitude reduces dependence on applause. She spends enough time outside collective validation to discover something unsettling. Most approval is transactional. It's granted when she performs acceptably and withdrawn when she does not. Once she sees that pattern, the spell weakens. She still values connection, but she no longer reorganizes herself to secure it. And when someone cannot be stirred by praise or fear of exclusion, social leverage evaporates, and people sense that. And the absence of leverage reads as unpredictability. And then time. Time becomes precious because at 30, time feels different. You've lived enough to understand cost, so you calculate differently. Is this connection energizing or draining? Is this space aligned or performative? Is this opportunity growth or distraction? You no longer spend time casually. You no longer scatter your time. You invest it deliberately. And a woman who guards her time cannot be easily consumed. Her sense of desire becomes self-directed. Her desires are refined. Solitude clarifies your appetite. Not just romantic desire, not just romantic appetite, but your life's appetite, your life's desire. You become specific standards, specific environments, specific ambitions, specific emotional atmospheres, specific people. Vagueness disappears. And specificity is intimidating because it cannot be easily persuaded. Specificity is rooted. Solitude gives her space to hear her own preferences without interference. What she wants for herself stops being filtered through expectations. So, career ambitions sharpen. Creative instincts surface. Lifestyle choices become intentional instead of performative. She starts to ask, what actually feels right to me? And acting on that answer without waiting for consensus. Autonomy like this unsettles social environments built on conformity because predictable people are easy to categorize. Self-directed people aren't. Self-directed women aren't. And humans instinctively distrust what they cannot categorize. And this is why people start to call her intimidating. When people say a woman is intimidating, they rarely mean she's hostile. They mean they can't find an entry point to control the interaction. She doesn't overshare to create comfort. She does not downplay competence. She doesn't rush to reassure fragile egos. So others must meet her as equals or not at all. That requirement exposes insecurity quickly, and insecurity seeks a narrative that restores balance. So it becomes she's too much, she's cold, she's difficult. But the discomfort isn't about her behavior, it's about the loss of automatic advantage. And this final shift is the one people misunderstand the most. A woman who has survived her own company stops fearing abandonment as catastrophe. She understands loneliness and she knows it does not kill her. And that knowledge is liberating because fear of abandonment has historically been a powerful compliance tool. Without that fear, her decisions come from preference, not survival. She chooses relationships. She doesn't cling to them. She stays because she wants to, not because she's afraid to leave. And that freedom is what people label dangerous, not because it harms them or harms others, but because it removes leverage. Dangerous in this context does not mean destructive, it means ungovernable. A woman shaped by solitude isn't rejecting connection, she's redefining it. She walks into rooms without bargaining for belonging. She speaks without rehearsing acceptability. She loves without dissolving herself. And while that unsettles systems built on dependency, for her, it feels like coming home. Not to isolation, but to sovereignty. And sovereignty has always looked radical until more women learned to recognize it in themselves. Maybe solitude did not isolate you. Maybe solitude initiated you into discernment, into emotional sovereignty, into cognitive dependence, into self-possession. If you are alone at 30 and strangely at peace and quietly evolving, nothing is wrong. You are refining, and refined women move differently. Has solitude happened to you? Has solitude softened you or sharpened you? I'd like to know in the comments. What emotion became easier for you to handle on your own this year? I would like to know in the comments as well. It's been my absolute pleasure to sit with you. This has been the Human Mirror. Look closely. You are never invisible. I'll see you in the next reflection.